absolutely convinced that migrants, and particularly former refugees who've experienced forced displacement, have fled wars and genocide, conflict and oppression, they bring so much to our society. And I think we meaning politicians and leaders in the community generally, we've got a job to do to have this conversation in our society.
Kia ora whanau, and welcome to a new episode. I'm very excited. I have a very special guest here in the studio, Phil, MP with Labour Party and the spokesperson of immigration. And how many other portfolio you have?
A couple of others, but let's talk about immigration. Yeah.
First, thank you so much for making time and coming along to the studio to have this corridor on. Phil, we do this with every guest when come to studio, which is, I know many people will know, but those who may not know, if I give you a mic until you introduce yourself, how would you love to do that?
You know what? I'm a grandfather, a husband, a father. I've been a political activist and a campaigner all my life, right back to when I was a teenager. When I was a young guy, I was a journalist, a union organiser. I spent 15 years with the international development organisation Oxfam. Ran it in New Zealand for 10 years, and then for 4 years I ran kind of global campaigns for social justice and human rights out of Washington DC for Oxfam. And then I've been in the New Zealand Parliament since 2008. I'm the Member of Parliament for Te Atatu in West Auckland, which is a beautiful urban, very multi-ethnic and interesting set of communities that I work for and I represent. I'm in the Labour Party. That's a big part of who I am politically. And I'm in my heart, I'm a campaigner for social justice.
Wow. So that's awesome. So question next is, what is like your passion? It look like since you're young, you've been activist and all of this. So the question, why you do this?
Well, I believe in the power of people to organise collectively to make change. And I think that is the kind of engine that drives human history. One way or another, everywhere in the world through history, people organise to try to get power and exercise power. Some people like to get that power just for themselves, and that's why we have dictatorships and oligarchy and elites. But pushing against that is ordinary people, working people who have struggled for democracy, for human rights, for political representation, for equality, and that's the side that I'm on. And I believe that people can, when they do organise together and use the power of numbers, that they can achieve change and make a better and fairer world.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see from what you have done, all of that, it need also another power to keep you going. So what was the something that keep you going when you were young and until you are now?
Well, when I was young, I was typical Kiwi. There's something about New Zealanders, we identify with the underdog, and that was part of my kind of attitude to life. And as a teenager, I grew up in the 1970s, which was a time of great social change. There was the rise of the women's movement, the environmental movement to protect our forests and our seas, the Māori sovereignty movement, this kind of amazing reassertion of Māori identity and rights in this country as Indigenous people. There was the peace movement, people who wanted New Zealand to become nuclear free, which we did when Labour got elected in 1984. The anti-apartheid movement, which was a powerful influence in this country for a long time. And so it was a time of great social ferment, and that was in my very formative years. And all of those struggles, those social movements influenced me and inspired me. And And then really the rest is history. I've done one thing after another. And when Helen Clark was the Prime Minister of New Zealand and the leader of the Labour Party, I looked at her and I thought that, well, that's a political party that I could really be part of and work within to try to make New Zealand a better place. And so I kind of I went from being an activist and a campaigner and a grassroots organiser to really embracing party politics and a centre-left party like Labour. And I see the Labour Party as being really important, because if we want to achieve progressive change in this country, if we want to make New Zealand a better and fairer place for everybody, then you need a strong progressive political party like Labour. And so that became my mission in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to ask you about why you joined the Labour. It looked like inspiration from Helen Clark.
In large part it was. I mean, our party went through some very, rough times and ups and downs in the 1980s. For a while there, it was a bastion of the kind of early neoliberalism and radical free market changes to our economy, which I didn't support and fought against. But Helen personified a much more sane and decent and inclusive vision of our society. And she put her stamp on the Labour Party for a new generation. And she's still a bit of a role model for me and a friend, and someone who I can really relate to. She continues to be, I think, one of the most thoughtful and interesting commentators on foreign policy for New Zealand. Over the last year and a half, we've been having this big debate about AUKUS and whether New Zealand should join the United States in a security alliance against China. Labour's been, and I have been, in the thick of that, and Helen has been one of the most interesting thinkers and writers on that issue. So she's still going strong.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've just been, even her foundation, that they just released a report about states of social cohesion. Yeah. Which is very important.
Yeah, I went to the launch of that. It was
it's cool.
Fascinating but quite disturbing report, wasn't it?
It is, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Phil, in terms of your journey to leadership, so what was like high and low in that journey, if you want to share with us and the audience?
Well, lots of highs and lows in politics. There's lots of risk involved in politics. You try things, they don't always work. But when things do work, when people come together and you're able to achieve positive change, then it's an incredible high and a sense of kind of purpose and satisfaction that I'm not sure I could find anywhere else in terms of work. So some of the highs have been when Labour was in opposition before the Jacinda Ardern government was elected. I campaigned for changing the law to make rental properties, houses in New Zealand, warm and dry. We have terrible quality housing stock in New Zealand. People get sick. Housing is cold and damp, and I developed the legislation in opposition, and then became the minister and was able to see it implemented through the Parliament to make it mandatory that rental properties should be well insulated and have a heating source like a heat pump. Now that's the law. Yeah. So hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders who rent are healthier and happier because of that law. So that's a real high. One of the other things that for me in politics that I feel really good about my contribution was when I was Associate Immigration Minister under Jacinda's government at the time that the Taliban took over in Afghanistan in August 2021. And I was involved in the evacuation of what turned out to be around 1,600 Afghans, many of whom had worked with the New Zealand presence in Afghanistan and therefore were at risk from the Taliban. And they and their families resettled here now. And I established a human rights defender program. So with the support of Cabinet, I issued 200 visas for people who were human rights activists. They were women's rights leaders. They were social activists. LGBTQI+, a young, high-profile female athlete, some politicians. These were people who had a public advocacy and work for human rights, and because of that, they were at risk from the Taliban.
Yeah,
and we gave them visas, and now they're settled in New Zealand.
Yeah,
I know a lot of them now. They're my friends, and it inspired me to continue that work. We then went on and issued visas for a number of human rights defenders from Myanmar, which is where there's a brutal civil war going on, one of the worst anywhere in the world, a military dictatorship that is at war with its own people, and some of the human rights leaders from the democracy movement in Myanmar, we brought them to New Zealand to give them a place of safety so they could continue to do their political and human rights work internationally, but from the safety and refuge of New Zealand.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, I mean, a huge privilege to be able to do that sort of thing in politics,
No, it's amazing, and some of them, we've been in touch with them. They are here in Wellington, which is cool. They are great people. They bring a lot with them as well while they're settling here, and the things that they share with us, and even for the host community, is just amazing to see. So while talking on this, and then you've been probably involved with a lot with the multi or cultural society. How you see that? How you see that, say, a vision for you as at Aotearoa?
Well, you know, the community where I live and that I work for in West Auckland is incredibly diverse. West Auckland's a place where people have come from first all over New Zealand and then all over the world to make a new life. And so in my electorate, more than half or I should say less than half of the population are Pākehā New Zealanders, white New Zealanders. So there's a big Māori community, big Pacifica community, and then just a myriad of other nationalities. And so in my daily life and my daily work, I live with that. And
you try a lot of foods?
Yes, of course. And I love it. It's a really super stimulating and exciting and interesting way to live. But I've also, as a politician, I've reflected a lot on this, and I'm utterly convinced that not only does our country need migration, like we need more young people to come here and work and pay taxes so we can, as a country, we can pay for the services that we take for granted, like health and education, superannuation. But I'm also absolutely convinced that that migrants, and particularly former refugees who've experienced forced displacement, have fled wars and genocide, conflict and oppression, they bring so much to our society in terms of the energy that they bring, the life experience, the wisdom, the values, the compassion that they have, the desire to get ahead and grab what opportunities are offered to them. As a country, we're so much better off for having people here in the society with that background. So, I'm very enthusiastic about the transformative and positive potential that migrants, and particularly former refugees, bring to New Zealand. So, and it's become a huge part of my work. So through the work I did with the human rights defenders, I've become now, I feel like an honorary member of the Afghan community in Auckland. I know so many of them. I work with them constantly. The Myanmar community I've got to know really well. In the last election campaign, I spent a lot of time organising these communities to enrolling people to vote, raising awareness about the democratic process, encouraging communities to have their voice heard by taking part in the democratic process and voting. And that was fun. I travelled all around the country. I ate a lot of great food. Wherever I went, people took me into their homes and fed me. And now and since then I've been done a lot of work with the Myanmar diaspora community, which is, these are people who for over 25 years have fled war in their country. They're incredibly diverse. They're a patchwork of micro communities.
Yeah.
They're highly political about their struggle for national liberation in Myanmar. They're fighting a very well organised struggle against the military dictatorship in Myanmar. And so I've done a lot of work with them, building solidarity and effective advocacy and campaigning.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Because, so as myself as well, coming from those community of former refugees, and now we call Aotearoa home. So we are really glad, to see the hope and the opportunity. But we also happy when we see the government are close to our communities. They make us feel belong. They protect those laws and that kind of welcoming environment, It's very important. So in your experience, while you've been now with a lot of those different communities, and there's also more coming, an issue will never end, unfortunately, in this world, right?
Yeah, 110 million people displaced around the world right now.
And that's the thing. So the question is, what do you think about New Zealand's position here? Because what I see, what we are afraid a little bit, it's we may give our obligations to human rights and things just because of certain worldview of some certain policies can affect our country. So people are asking, will that impact us as well? So what's your vision here?
Well, I look around the world and it's right now it's a pretty depressing view. The number of displaced people is up to 110 million. We've seen the rise of authoritarian governments in so many countries, including the great powers, including in the United States. And migrants have been demonised by the rise of right-wing populism in so many countries. People have tried to make political capital by attacking migrants and refugees and politicising the whole process of asylum. And it's been enormously damaging to democracy and human rights. And we see it everywhere. The whole international system, including international law around refugees and asylum seekers, is breaking down right in front of us. So I find that profoundly concerning. I look at little old New Zealand at the bottom of the South Pacific, and in some ways we've been quite immune from many of those stresses. Because we're surrounded by this giant ocean, we don't have irregular migration like in the Mediterranean or the US-Mexican border and so on. So it's not such a target. We don't have irregular migration that would be a target for politicians who want to attack migrants. And in many ways, the consensus in New Zealand between the political parties and the leaders around immigration and refugees is holding quite nicely. That's good, I think.
That's good, yeah, of course.
So we have to hold on to that because it's really important, right? And as a politician, I try to do everything I can to encourage that, not to divide people, but to maintain kind of positive messages. And so I think we have to preserve that. That's really important. Definitely. But you mentioned earlier the report that the Helen Clark Foundation did recently about social cohesion. And it was very concerning because the data in that opinion research indicated that a lot of New Zealanders do not believe that migrants make a positive contribution to our country. And I was shocked by those numbers. And I think we, meaning politicians and leaders in the community generally, we've got a job to do to have this conversation in our society and put some facts on the table, really, and encourage people to realise that migrants are not only needed, our society we won't grow and develop and do well without migration. And our society is enormously enriched culturally, socially, and economically by migrants. So, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's in some ways we're better off than other countries in this respect, but we're not perfect, and we have a lot of work to do.
On that note, Phil, if you tomorrow, let's say next election, Labour come back to government first, you have many portfolio, what will be the main one you will fight for it?
Yeah. So I think you can probably tell listening to me, I've come to really love and really believe in the importance of this area that we're talking about immigration, human rights, refugees and asylum seekers. Mm-hmm. And so there are some things that I would love the next Labor government to do. So I think that we can and we need to really get better as a country at welcoming and settling newcomers who come here. Mm-hmm. It's tough. I know that it's tough because I know so many people whose experience has been, whether they're refugees or whether they're migrants, we just don't make it easy for people to settle. Our employers, our job market's incredibly conservative. We don't recognise the skills people bring to this country. Mm. And I think there's a lot of things that we could do to improve the settlement experience, particularly of refugees.
I like that.
So that's really important. Mm-hmm. I think there are things that we can do. The pathways for refugees to come to New Zealand, we can develop that. So we have, we had I'm sure the audience will remember the Double the Quota campaign.
Yes, right.
Right. So we have a UNHCR administered annual program of 150 people who come through as refugees to New Zealand. I would love us to see us do more. So, for example, I would really like us to have complementary pathways, for example, that provide a pathway on the basis of skilled migration and education. So think of those 110 million people who are languishing all over the world at the moment, right? There's a lot of people with the skills and with high-level qualifications and so the work experience and skills and the education and qualifications that we could create an additional pathway for people to come. Labour mobility and education. Now, Canada, as always, they do some of the most interesting and innovative things in this area. They are doing this. So we can learn from them, and I would love to see us add these additional pathways. We've also done a pilot project for the last few years that the former Labor government started off called the Community Organisation Refugee Settlement Sponsorship Scheme. You know it?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's been really successful. I've spoken to a lot of the people who've come here under that scheme and the organisations that hosted them. There's a review that's been done. I asked the Minister the other day at Parliament, are we going to continue it on and make it permanent? And they haven't allocated any money for it, so there's a big question mark over it. Yeah. But we should make that permanent and scale it up. Yeah. I think it would be great. And it gives the opportunity for people and communities all around the country, churches and other organisations, to get involved and be really involved in the whole process of bringing refugees here and resettling them. So I think that would be great. I think family reunification is really broken at the moment. Yeah. And it's a source of heartache for the very people it's supposed to be helping as a policy. And at the moment, only Tier 1, the solos, have got access to this, the ability to apply for a visa for family members to join them in New Zealand. Yeah. And Tier 2, people who already have family here, there's nothing happening for them. It's closed. Yes. So I think we've got to clear but there's a backlog that would take 8 to 10 years to clear at the moment. Wow. That's just crazy stuff, right? Yeah. So let's fix that, clear the backlog, and have a bigger number of people who can come every year and make it a proper thing that will help people settle successfully in New Zealand by bringing family to join them here. So that's important. Yeah. And I'll give you one more idea. I've got a lot of ideas, you can tell. There's one more thing that I'm really excited about, and that is, when Russia invaded Ukraine and our Labour government created a special visa that allowed Ukrainian Kiwis to sponsor family members to escape the war and take refuge in New Zealand. And several hundred of them came and did that, some of them in my community. But this government has refused to do something similar for the families of Palestinian New Zealanders trying to get out of the genocide in Gaza. Yeah. And I think that's wrong and unfair, and I think that we should have a standing visa, humanitarian visa, for the families of Kiwis who are stuck in war zones or human rights crises overseas. Give them the chance to sponsor those family members to come here. And I think that would mean a lot to people who are going through, a terrible experience
Absolutely.
of these days. We can be completely in touch on our phones with what's happening with someone in the middle of a genocide on the other side of the world. So we experience it. And when it's your family, how terrible that must be.
Oh.
So I think this special humanitarian visa would be a really beautiful thing that we could do as a country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's other things, but those are my favorites.
That's amazing. I love this. It's good we are getting it in podcast. So when you become minister, Phil, you remember this podcast?
Exactly.
Let's achieve this one. I think it's great. All of them, what you mentioned, I've been involving in the sector, and I see the direct impact on my community, my family, and also wider society.
Yep.
So especially those programs, I really love them. Like we do have some people right now who do great editing job for us. They are refugee in Turkey waiting. I've been over 15 years still waiting. Yeah. And every time I find, okay, what we can do, because the sponsorship program is how beautiful it is, but it's the limited number and per year and that. So hope if that become something like continuing, more organization can apply more, because there's many people out there. You can also play a role, provide them like jobs while they are there until we bring them here. You know how cool it is to feel the belonging stronger.
Yep.
When a country have helped them in their way and then settle here.
Sure.
So the question here, when you get this journey done, it will be 10x more loyalty, more belonging, more productive in this country. That's how one thing we do when you give us a chance, let's say, to settle, it's kind of like a new life, new beginning, new hope. These things people not experience unless you go through that experience when you stuck in that place of war or genocide.
Sure.
Imagine someone tell you, we will get you out there.
Yeah.
Get you to safety. And the rest of here, the things that will go, I think there will be way, if we work with the community in the ground, to find the best way how the settlement can work actually. Because the community now, let's say a lot of them who come from, since New Zealand start accepting refugees, there's a lot of cool experience and learning. Many of them become leaders. We need to negotiate with these guys. We need to bring those experience and cultures to inform better policies, you know, better
I agree with
decision making.
Yeah. One of the fun things about this working in this space is, as you say, there is so much talent and energy that's come up through the ranks of the community, and the whole idea that policy and implementation in this area should be led by people with lived experience of forced migration, I think is really great. And I've been within the Labour Party, there's a handful of people who all come from a forced migration background, and I've been working with them on how we develop the policies that I was just outlining to you. They've all arisen out of work that this group of people have done within the Labour Party. Also engaging with the wider community and saying, hey, what do you think? What do you think we should do? So, Rez Gardi, who you probably know, who's been very prominent. Right. So she's one of my colleagues in the Labour Party. And there's a bunch of them. So,
which is the other things. Let me just share with you here. There's great people there, but I love New Zealand. They do this kind of certain groups of advisory. This is cool way, democratic way, but also become afraid. They become a barrier of engaging with wider community. This is something I every time try to tell the government. Hey, look, this is great bodies you created. But actually then these people stuck there and never come back to community and things because of, which is also understanding how you engage with many communities, right?
Sure.
But should be some process there that community get direct informations, not be labeled by, because tell you this right. Some politician advice, they will create this, then will tick box done. That tick box exercise is impacting us a lot. Which is why I say this, because a lot of things go on the ground, they don't go out because advisories, they're already busy with a certain amount of work. With all respect, they are also great people doing all this stuff. But for instance, what's going on now in Iran, you may be already here. There's a news coming out how they are forcing refugees, which is a scary situation. You know, they're already run from the Taliban and now the government there trying to push them, or in other countries,
Yep.
Middle East,
Sure.
or even in Syria, which is, I think, European, they stop any refugee, which is
Right.
kind of quick, right?
Sure.
Without consultation with community, wait, I know it's changed the government, but look what's going on every time.
Yep.
So that's, I think, New Zealand is doing a good job on creating all those bodies. But what is, I'm also afraid, because I've been talking last week with a couple of activists. They are so great, but they do walk in the ground. They are not good in publicity. So they feel their voice is not being heard because it's been blocked. And that is something I want to pass it through here, because I'm sure you will have a voice to represent us in Parliament and anything you're doing.
I think what you're saying is true, and I think one of the ways to get around it is to have multiple channels,
Yep.
so that there's lots of opportunities.
That's
so you
right.
don't funnel everything through a handful of key, hand-picked advisors.
That's right.
You have public meetings, you have online stuff, you have events, you have all sorts of different ways of people having a say. And as a politician, I'm strongly of the view that you need to have multiple opportunities. You want to have face-to-face contact with people. You want to create spaces where anyone can have a say. You know, they can get up and in a meeting and say what they think. Or, my rule in my electorate in West Auckland, anybody in the community I represent, if they want to come to my office and see me, they can. Anyone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you be available, accessible to people. Because I think, I really believe that people can reach out to their representative straight away, tell them what is going on. Because any information would help make things better.
Sure.
It's just more information, that's mean more insight for the community, more solid policy.
Yep.
That's the stand. I'm coming to the last question, Phil. Look, this corridor is just amazing. We can talk about things a lot, I think. We can hopefully invite you again in the next opportunities. But tomorrow, if you took the portfolio of immigration, what will be one or two things you want to try to achieve them in your term if it's Labour come back to government? Like new to your heart. What will be two things?
Well, all those things I mentioned before. But there's another thing that I would love to do, and that is to create a program for human rights defenders. So I talked about how we gave visas to the Afghans, the Myanmar. Some of the European countries are already doing this, and we can learn from them. But for New Zealand to be a really strong voice for human rights, so that wherever our diplomats are around the world, they have a human rights conversation. Why is this journalist in prison? Why is this person being tortured? So that, and making New Zealand a place of refuge for human rights defenders. Maybe in the case of Afghanistan, it's probably permanent or semi-permanent.
Yeah.
But there are some countries where human rights defenders they do enormously stressful and risky work, and countries that are close, all around Asia, for example, there are many countries where there are human rights defenders who really are under enormous pressure from the authorities. They get a lot of stuff thrown at them, and I think for New Zealand to provide a refuge for those people, either temporary or permanent, would be a great thing to do that on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So, I would love to be part of doing that in New Zealand. But if we look across the whole area of forced migration, then there's a bunch of things we should do. We're going to improve the settlement process.
Definitely.
Family reunification's a big one, and complementary pathways, more pathways for refugees to come to New Zealand.
Oh, wonderful. That's amazing, Phil. I appreciate your corridor. So in this season, we have a tradition here. A previous guest, if you only watch the YouTubes, you may know, is it left like a question.
Yeah.
And then you will have a chance as well to provide a question. Let's see, what is the question here? Okay. Let's go. Question. It says, "What's your favorite color and why?" Come on, right?
It's the colour of my granddaughter's cheeks on a cold morning.
Cool. And that's why, because of your granddaughter. Amazing.
She's the joy of my life. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
How beautiful that. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate your kōrero and your mei and your leadership. I think this is great inspirations for many people who are listening, watching, like what you shared, that's how you started, and then how you create your journey there, as well as also some of the cool initiative and inspiration of which you already guys doing cool as opposition and democratic healthy system, and what will be the vision if you back to the government again.
Yeah.
And I would love to host you again in a couple different opportunities, but I really appreciate your time.
Let's do it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Ka kite.